Hi everyone, this week as you can see I'll be taking Hieratics to locals. Now I'm playing this deck because it's one of my favourite decks of all time. It's not a very strong deck if you're trying to play it pure, which I'm kind of trying to do with this list, but I'm mainly playing it because we hit 50 subscribers this week and I just thought it would be fun to celebrate with a fun deck. So this deck is not super duper competitive. Hopefully it takes a few game ones by surprise because it is a going second build, but as you'll see through the list, it's more just to have fun with this one, and if we win a few games that's excellent, otherwise we'll see what happens. So for the list we are playing 3 Hieratic Dragon of Tefnuit, which is like a Cyber Dragon for the deck, 3 Hieratic Dragon of Su, 3 Hieratic Dragon of Esset, and 2 Hieratic Dragon of Nebthet. To support that as well, I'm playing 3 Artillery Catapult Turtle because this card can bring out any of our 5s. Specifically though, we're mostly bringing out Esset, and so Artillery Catapult Turtle is 3 more copies of our starter. Because to really do anything in this deck, you need to open a starter and an extender. Extender being pretty much specifically Su. So Artillery Catapult Turtle would tribute itself to bring out a set, and then we can tribute summon the Su over the Esset, which gives us our main play. Also playing just a couple of other just good dragons in the list, so a Levianeer, a Seifert, and an Omni Dragon Brotor. These cards really help with the grind game of the deck, specifically Levy being able to recur it with Seifert and Brotor as the game goes on. You end up playing a little bit of a rank 8 control as well the longer the game goes. And it wouldn't be Hieratics without the bricks. So I'm playing 2 Hieratic Seal of the Sun Dragon Overlord, 1 Labradorite and 1 Wartail. Probably would play a second Labradorite, I just don't have a second copy. Normally I wouldn't play 2 of the vanilla 8, but there's a card I'm playing in the list that helps to facilitate some pretty good rank 8 plays, so I'm playing 2 for that reason. So that's the main monsters. For hand traps, I'm only running Gamma and Driver. At my local specifically, this does a pretty good job of shutting down what it needs to do. It's most often a turn skip if you can resolve it successfully. So as far as hand traps go, I'm playing that one as it's the most impactful. Other spells, 3 Hieratic Seal of Convocation, 3 Pot of Desires, and 1 Called by the Grave. Nothing much to say. Hieratic Seal is 3 more copies of any starter or extender, and Pot of Desires is good to get more cards. And then for the going second or big blowout cards, I'm playing Successor Soul. This one's not nearly as big a blowout as something like Dark Ruler or Evenly Matched is, but it can tribute a Hieratic and then special summon out the vanilla level 8 dragon, and then the tributed Hieratic can then also summon out the other vanilla level 8, which can then set you up for a rank 8 into something like Jubilee Beyond to end the game, depending on whether or not you Dark Rule or Evenly. And then the last card is Harpy's Feather Duster. So it's 42 cards this list. In the main deck, the extra deck, again, like I said, it's not meant to be super duper competitive, it's just to have fun and mainly see what happens, so see their faces when you turn 1 evenly matched. 1 Atum, 1 Photon Strike Bouncer, 1 Constellar Ptolemy, and 1 number 39 Utopia Beyond for our rank 6s. Beyond is pretty good as an out to Dragoon, which sees a fair bit of play, so if you can bait the negation from Dragoon, or if you Dark Rule them, I guess it doesn't really matter, but you can Utopia Beyond, make their attack 0, attack over it, then main phase 2, you can go into Gaia Dragon, and then you can go into Zeus, which gives you a 4 material Zeus play, which is pretty nice. Rank 8s, playing Droglubian, Hope Harbinger, and Ding. And of course the Numeron Dragon, which goes with the Droglubian. I find that in testing, I don't always go into the Dread Glubion as an OTK for that very first turn, but usually turn 1 will be try to break the board, try and establish a Zeus, and then on my next turn, so turn 4, go for the Dread Glubion into Numeron Dragon, and if Zeus is still on the field, your Numeron Dragon becomes ridiculously huge. Then for some link monsters, playing double Hieratic Seal, 1 Borrowload purely because I like the card, 1 Blackluster Soldier again because I like the card, and Link Spider. And that rounds out the 15 cards for the extra deck. So a lot of the choices I'm playing are not the best choices, but I'm playing them simply because I like them. Blackluster Soldier you can make fairly easily. You've got lots of access to rank 8s and level 8s, so Blackluster Soldier will often have its effect to be untargetable and undestructible. For the side deck, because we're maining a lot of going second cards, I'm playing a lot of going first cards in the side. So 1 Scythe, which will go with the Sanctums coming up, 3 Cosmic Cyclone, 3 Solemn Judgment, 3 Artifact Sanctum, 3 Guard Dragon Cataclysm. I really like this card in Hieratics. Tributing a Hieratic gets its effect, and then you can target 2 cards and destroy them, so that's pretty great. And then 2 Trap Trick to help see those Sanctums and Cataclysms to help with that turn 1 if you have to go first, because otherwise going first, and even in this list, going first, you're really relying on the trap cards to get you there. Not many people at my locals would blind second, so I think I'd be able to go second with no dramas, but going first, once they catch on to what I'm doing, I'm really relying on the trap cards because the way that this list is built specifically, it's lucky to put out it's pretty consistent to put out a rank 6, but that's about it. So 1 rank 6 backed up by traps, something like a Photon Strike Bouncer, or if you do open access to Cataclysm, you could go into a Tum and summon out a Hieratic so you get its effect as well, or passing on a Hieratic Seal as well to continue. That's about your turn 1 plays, but that's the list. Other options that I tossed up for this list, because I've been playtesting Hieratics all the time trying to make them good, it's usually fairly unsuccessful, but a Dragon Link variant works, although by the time you've built it, you're really just playing Dragon Link. It's not really Hieratics, but you can use Esset and Sue to effectively get into a Dragon Link combo, because Esset, Tribute for Sue, you would make a Tum, summon Brotor, and then it gets you into the baby Chaos Dragons, which gets you into LP and Pisty. So it's just not Hieratics though, so that's why I'm not playing that variant. Probably stronger, will probably do more damage, but I'd rather try and keep it pure. But that's the list, and I will get into some test hands. Okay, so we're shuffling up for test hand number 1. Now it's tricky to know what your opponent would have because I'm going to be testing a blind second list. So I'm just going to see what we draw, see what potentially we could do, but again, we don't know what the opponent's end board would look like. I've built it this way, so the going second cards I've chosen Dark World and Evenly. No one really plays Virtual World at my locals, and Dark Ruler does nothing to stop VFD, so I'm just hoping that I don't play against anyone with Virtual World. No one really brings it, so that should be alright. Otherwise, Dark Ruler is pretty favourable against a lot of the decks that I typically would see. So I'm going to draw 5, just to see what we start with, and then I'll draw a 6th card as our going second. Okay, so there's our opening 5 cards. That is a pretty phenomenal hand. That's pretty good. Because Esset and Sue, that gets us into a play with Hieratics. Gamma, we would be going for this on our opponent's turn. So hypothetically, we Gamma them at some point. It'll bring out the driver, which is good, gets 1 more brick out of our deck. Already playing 4 other vanillas, which are all pretty unfortunate to draw. So we Gamma on their turn, that will get banished at the end of phase. Hopefully that does a pretty good job of stopping some of their plays. Because with this deck, because our power level is a lot lower than other decks, we're trying to really simplify the game state so that we can then take the game from there. So we draw for our turn, Dark Rule. Okay, so our opponent's really not doing anything this game with his hand. We're pretty free to Dark Rule evenly. Even without the Gamma, this is pretty great. This is mostly going to just wipe the opponent's board completely. So let's, for this one though, because we've already Gammaed, we might assume that their end board is not so great. So we'll Dark Rule of them. They might have had a couple of negations, but we're not going to evenly just yet because we could put, we can't even OTK with this, so it doesn't really matter, but let's just play some of this out and see what happens. We'll go asset first, tribute the asset for the Sue. The other reason we don't want to evenly is because we lose access to Zeus by not being able to battle. So holding the evenly in this case, because we already did Gamma first, potentially could work out in our favour. I usually go for Labrador at first when I'm going for my level 6s. It's the better one. It's dark, which is something the deck doesn't have a lot of darks. So when you're summoning Levianeer, it's good to have darks engraved to banish. From here we could overlay. We'll go into Atum here. Actually, before we overlay, let's fire off Desires now, because we just wanted to get at least one of our level 6s out of the deck. 10, and then we'll draw 2 cards. See what we banished. Okay, so losing the Levianeer is a bit unfortunate. Losing one of the Hieratic Seals is, again, it's a little bit unfortunate too. Just the consistency of going into a rank 8 is dropped by that, but we still have asset to get us there. We'll see what we drew. A Called by the Grave and a Catapult Turtle. Both cards that are not that good. So in this position, we can't really do too much. We know that our opponent hasn't really got much. Oh, so they've just got a negated board. They've still got their full board. So from here we can overlay. It's not really worth going into Atum here because there's nothing really worth summoning. If we had other Hieratics in hand, Atum summoning out a Hieratic and then tributing the ones in hand is really good because you can use their pop effects, but otherwise not going to go that way. This hand, we might go into Beyond here because we at least go for a Zeus then. So all of our opponent's monsters become 0. We can battle over one of them. They're still under Dark Ruler, so they've got no effects. Main phase 2, we can go Gaia and Zeus. And then depending on what their board looks like, we're pretty free to just Zeus on end phase as well, clearing the board. So now we're at a very simplified game state, and we can set the Call by the Grave, going then into our opponent's turn. So with this hand, we did clear their board and ended with our 4 material Zeus. So they're going into their turn, they've got nothing, and we'll have to see what they can build then from there. But that'll be test hand number 1. Okay, so we're going to move for test hand number 2. And that first hand showed pretty much exactly what we're going for, simplifying the game state. Our first turn is breaking the board, and then simplifying the game state so that we can push then on our next turn. Okay. So for number 2, we've got Sue, evenly matched, Sue, Nebthet, and Esset. And then so obviously our opponent is free to do whatever they want their turn, and then we draw for turn. It's an evenly matched. So this is pretty good. We can go straight to battle phase, bait out a negation. It might get negated, it might not. Hypothetically, it got negated, so we'll fire off the other one. Let's say that resolved. They've got 1 card left. Could be a monster, could be a spell. This hand can potentially deal with it depending on what it is. Our only play here is to normal summon the asset without tributing. We then would tribute the asset. Let's say it's a monster that they've got left, so we'll tribute the asset for Nebthet. The asset will trigger. And we're going to summon. Now, we're going to get another tribute because we're going to use Nebthet to tribute a Sue and bring out another vanilla. So we've got to be mindful then of what we want to go into. That's going to really stop our opponent. So the best idea would be to have a stacked Zeus as best we can. So probably the Utopia Beyond gets us the easiest access into a stacked Zeus. So we're going to concentrate on getting the level 6 vanillas out first. So bring out Labradorite. Another thing we could have done, depending on the board, was bring out the level 8 because it is Hieratic in name, so we can tribute it as another tribute option. But we're going to use Nebethet's effect in hand, tribute Sue from our hand to pop their last monster, whatever it was. So then Sue would trigger. So now our opponent is on nothing, no board. We can summon out Wartail here. Oh, sorry, I actually completely forgot we can't do what we were planning to do because we even lead them, so we've lost access to Zeus in this case. But that's okay. We can then just try and build a board. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to tribute Nebethet and summon Sue. The tributed Nebethet will summon out one of our vanillas. In this case, it's going to have to be a level 8. Now at this point we do have options. The simplest option would be turning 2 into a Hieratic Seal, which gives us a disruption on our opponent's turn, and then we can go for, well, we can't actually go for Protoss, we've got no cards in hand, and then overlaying for some kind of disruption, like a Photon Strike Bouncer. And so we've broken their board and set up a couple of interruptions going into our opponent's turn, so we've simplified the game state here. We could do it that way, or if we wanted to get access to a rank 8 through this exact field, we can put those back. We can overlay 2 6s for a Tum. Detach. I always like to detach the vanillas so I've got access to them. Summon out a set. And then Esset can use its effect targeting the level 8. So now all Hieratics become level 8. These two can then become the seal. And these two can become our rank 8. So I guess depending on what our opponent's playing, we could obviously go for Hope Harbinger here. Could go for Ding here. Ding's not bad. Hope Harbinger is good because it also protects the Hieratic seal. If we were playing a Morphage Goliath, that would be even better, because we could tribute off the Hieratic seal, go into a Morphage Goliath, and Harbinger can protect it from battle. But that's just an example. So we've got a spell negate here and a monster and a bounce there, or we could end on Photon Strike Bouncer, which is a monster negate. That's test hand number 2. Or test hand number 3, I'm going to show a hypothetical side if I knew I was going first against a combo deck. So I'd be siding in a lot of cards and siding out a lot of cards as well. So if I'm siding to go first, the Tefnuits lose all of their value here. So the Tefnuits will come out. The Dark Rulers and Evenlies will all come out. The Harpy's Feather Dust is going to come out in this one because if we're playing a combo deck that doesn't use back row, it's not a card we can take out. Okay, so we're starting in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 2 more cards to side out, and yeah, we'll just side out 2 Successor Soul. Okay. So going first, our goal is really to be able to just set up a disruption or 2, so Hieratic Seal, or a Photon Strike Bouncer, or a rank 8, with traps backing that up. Because going first, that's about as good as it's going to get. I had one thought of potentially dedicating my whole side deck to a smoke screen strategy into a Dragon Link, but we're trying to play Hieratics pure, so we've got to accept that going first it just doesn't do very much. Okay, we've got Levianeer, Sanctum, seal, trap trick, and scythe. It was looking pretty okay until the scythe. So that's really sad. This field is going to be pretty useless. It would be Convocation into Esset, because it's the only one we can summon. Then we would normal summon the Esset. It's actually not the other word, we can still trigger this. So normal summon the Esset and set our cards. And that's it. Now then going into our opponent's turn, we would be free to trap trick. And we're going to go for our Cataclysm. We wait till our opponent has committed to something. And then we can Cataclysm, tribute the Esset, target the Scythe as one of our set cards to destroy, and then one card our opponent controls, and then we summon out the Scythe, and the Esset will get its effect to summon one out as well. And might just get, doesn't really matter which one we get, but we can go the Labradorite Dragon just to get it into rotation. Obviously the Sanctum is doing nothing, but for that turn we popped one and extra deck locked them, so that's not too bad. And then if or when this gets cleared, because it's not that good a board, we could levy on the next turn. We've got enough materials for it. So that wasn't too bad. We didn't get the monster disruption that we would have liked, but still did what it was meant to do. I'll just do one more because that was a quicker one. Okay, so we've got Safet, Wartail, Sanctum, Scythe, oh my goodness, that's terrible, and the Sanctum. So this hand is also very poor. This time we've drawn no way to trigger the Scythe. I mean, all we could do is really summon the Safet, turn the Wartail into, or use its Safet's effect, search out, Sue, or we even sided up with Tefnuit, so that's pretty sad. And we're setting cards that do nothing, so we just lose that game. And let's do one more. Hopefully we don't draw Scythe this time. Wartail, Successor Soul, Catapult Turtle, Esset, and Judgment. Okay, that's not too bad. It's not the, we're not going to be able to get 2 dragons to make seal or anything like that, but it's just going to be a matter of, again, normal summoning and setting a couple of cards. The Successor Soul does give us plays though, so we can Successor Soul, tribute the Esset, send one of their monsters, and then we summon out the Vanilla, and then Esset would trigger as well. And just so we can get the other Vanilla out of the deck just so it's gone. We've already got our 6 in hand is good, so we don't need to prioritize Labradorite as much as there. And now we can potentially make a rank 8 depending on what happens. We've got the Judgment, and this may not get cleared depending on what we're playing. Obviously it probably gets cleared by any good deck, so going into the next turn, and we pretty much just lose from there anyway, so not the greatest. Hopefully though we only really need to go second 1 out of 3 games. Hopefully we win game 1 without going second strategy, but yep, that's the deck. That's a few test hands and we will see how it goes. Thanks for watching.